The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 564.
Family games.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Geoff talks about basketball, and Tom and I pretend we know all the rules. Also, we discuss the most popular games checked out from the Dice Tower Con library. We present a recursive tale of board gaming horror, and we answer some rapid-fire questions from the mailbag. Then we finish up with some personal stories regarding our top 10 games we play with our families. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Mike Brady to my Alice, Tom Vassell.
I made a video one time that turned my family into the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, you've passed that, though.
I did the moving the heads.
With the looking up and down. I always thought that was cool. Reminds me of Hollywood Squares.
Well, as a kid, I was like, how did they do that? How did they... That's so cool.
Are they all just sitting in a weird frame and sticking their heads through holes and stuff? Wow, that's amazing.
Well, they actually do sit in that kind of weird frame in Hollywood Squares.
Well, they do. It's a little bit larger.
Yeah. Sure.
They must have done... There has to be a Hollywood Squares episode where they got the entire Brady Bunch cast together. That has to exist somewhere, right?
Who knows? I could look it up on the internet, but I'm too lazy.
They must have done that. Future Eric will do it. Oh, yes, thank you, past Eric, for that wonderful Google journey you sent me on. To my knowledge, I was unable to find an episode of the Hollywood Squares where they all appeared together in their proper format so that they could do the looking up, looking down. But many of the Brady Bunch cast has appeared on Hollywood Squares individually. So yes and no. Anyway, back to the show.
Folks, I'm Tom Vassell.
Hi there, I'm Eric Summerer.
And welcome to episode 564. So pretty soon we'll get to episode 567. Wait a minute. That's going to be our Gencon episode. That's pretty cool.
That will be our Gencon episode. Oh. That is exciting. You're going to go on for like 10 minutes about
1, 2, 3,
numerology.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Well, anyhow, speaking of Gencon, folks, Gencon is getting closer. Now, we're not going to... We're going to be doing a full-fledged Gencon show, so stay tuned for that. That will be coming up in the future before Gencon. I find that to be kind of a useful thing to do.
I have started making my list, though, looking at the preview and trying to figure out what games. I thought I only had like 2 games on my must-get list, and it's already above that. Yeah.
Well, at Gencon
we'll talk about that later.
Itself, we're doing a couple shows. We're doing our big Dice Tower Live, the 7th annual live show at Gencon, sponsored by Stronghold Games. This is open to everybody. There's still, as doing it, 394 tickets out of 1,200.
Okay.
But we fully expect them to go out. They always do. But if you want to come to that, you just got to sign in your Gencon account and sign up for that. A couple other things.
When is that, Tom?
That is 2 o'clock on Friday of Gencon.
Cool.
I'm also doing a little seminar on Thursday at 2 called Being Successful in Tabletop Media, Maybe.
Wow.
Well, I just thought I would talk about, how I do things in a podcast and YouTube video series and tips, tricks, and common sense. And I'll be taking questions and answers. So that's going on.
Are you representing the maybe?
No, it's just that I don't know that anything is guaranteed. I don't think success is necessarily guaranteed by effort.
True.
I will say that there's a lot of different charity events at the convention. There's a charity auction. There is a Cardhala Destruction for charity.
Yes.
There's Slay the Balloon Creature for charity. And all these things for charity are going to be pointing towards the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund as one of the 2 charities. So I encourage you guys to get involved with that sort of thing, and hopefully we'll see you at these different events.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that Gencon has chosen the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund for one of these beneficiaries this year. That's a big honor for one thing and a great opportunity to reach more people.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. We have a booth at the convention, and there's so much. Oh, our booth, by the way, is booth 2835. 2835. I can't think of anything clever to do with that number. I mean, the first two digits are divisible by 7 as well as the last two digits. So if you think 45, and then 4 times 7 is 28, and 5 times 7 is 35. But that sounds like it might be a little bit more work than it's worth.
Yeah, I'm just going to remember 2835. Maybe you write it down on my hand or something.
Fine. Be that way. All right, so that's what's coming up with Gen Con. We just got back from Dice Tower Con. Which was amazing.
It was a blast.
It was incredibly good. So we're going to talk about some games. Maybe we played them at Dice Tower Con, maybe not. Just a couple games. And I'm going to get us started by talking about one of the most excited games I've been most excited about in a long time. Mm-hmm. And that is Root. Now, Root is from Leader Games. It is actually... It's designed, the designer of this game, of Root, is the same designer as John Company, which is a completely different type of game. So John Company is, I played John Company. I got tricked into doing it. It was like 3-4 hours, and the guy
really,
said, it's not that long.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But it's about, what is John Company about? It's this deep in-depth of the John Company that went to India, and a whole bunch of things were involved there. And that game from Sierra Madre Games, they're known for making heavy games.
Yeah.
Is just, it's a very in-depth game. So designer Cole Worrell, this is his second game as far as I can tell, and he based it on the coin system. This is a card war game system that GMT uses for a lot of their games. Now, don't let any of this scare you. I didn't know any of this going into this game, and I still enjoyed the game. Root is a game that looks like Redwall, Mossflower, what's the Waterdeep? What's it called?
Watership Down?
Watership Down. Yeah, that sort of thing. It has these... Basically, it's in this land, and you're going to play one of 4 factions. You're going to play the Marquis, the Cats, or whatever. There's Cats. They've taken over the land. They control most of the land. Or you can be the rebellion against them. Think Robin Hood and his crew. Or you can be the Birds of Airy. There's this really strong... They're not huge, but they're trying to expand and grow. Or you can be a wandering vagabond who's like a ninja-type guy walking around and dealing with everybody. Each of these factions is completely asymmetrical. They have different win conditions, different ways to get victory points, different ways that they play. Like I said, it's from Leader Games, and their first game was Vast. We've talked about that, a very, very asymmetrical game. Mm-hmm. This one is just as asymmetrical as Vast, with the difference being it only goes to 4 players, or at least with the base game only goes to 4 players.
Is it really 4? I thought there were 2 more characters in there.
There might be in the expansion.
Okay.
It mentioned some stuff about expansion in the rule book, but didn't really... I didn't see that much about it, so I have no experience with that. I know there's a River Folk expansion, and maybe there's another one, but I don't want to guess on any of that. I just know that I played the base game. Mm-hmm. So you could play just 2 or 3 or 4. I like it with all 4 factions. So if you're the Cat faction, there's 12 regions on the board. The Cats control 11 of them at the beginning of the game. The Birds control 1. The Rebellion has nothing, and the Vagabond's just kind of walking around. Mm-hmm. And so the Vagabond's he's searching runes to find equipment. The more equipment the Vagabond has, the stronger he gets. The Cats are just trying to build buildings and keep peace in the land. The Underground's trying to get discontent, and the Birds are just trying to expand and grow as fast as they can and whoop up on everybody else. And they all play so differently. I want to play the same one multiple times. Now, granted, the slight negative of this is to teach the game. You have to teach each faction, but you don't have to teach them that differently because they do a lot of the same things. Combat's the same for everybody. Movement's the same for everybody. And the player aids and boards in this game are incredibly helpful at walking you through not only setup, but how to take your turn. And the game is 90 minutes to 2 hours. Now, I think you played part of the game?
Well, yeah, so I sat down to play this on the Hot Games table, and I would love to give a full impression, but we had to stop because Tom lumbers over when we're about 45 minutes into it and says, sorry, guys, I have to leave soon, and this is my copy, and I want to do a review of it. So, Eric, pack it up, please. And so we did. So I really enjoyed our intro. We maybe
I feel like that's a slight mischaracterization of what happened. I was very apologetic.
There was a lumbering, and you told us to stop. That's all I remember. Just through the rage.
Why am I lumbering?
I don't know. I could see you coming, and you had this glint in your eye, like I get to give some bad news. Anyway, I really. We got maybe 4 rounds in. I was enamored, though, after maybe only 2 turns, 3 turns. There's this lovely tutorial that you can it just walks you through the first couple turns of the game and runs you through most of the mechanics for each individual faction. It may not have made the decisions I would have made, but it does show you how things work. I was playing that Vagabond faction, and already I was excited to be slipping into the forest and trading things, exploring, and trying to expand my capacity so I could get more stuff and trade with the other races. It was really neat, and I was disappointed when Tom ripped it from our fingers and took it away. Yeah, but the art design is
Tom Vassal hates fun type hashtag. I feel like you're being paid by Bonacor here.
It was you took away our candy pretty much. But I
should have waited to the last second to play it.
Yeah, I really didn't think about it. This happens every year at Dice Tower Con. I realize that I have a certain amount of time before I need to leave, but I sort of forget that the library needs to get packed up and the hot games need to get packed up. So I'm not really cognizant of that timeline. And it's my own fault for sitting down at the game when I knew you needed to leave.
Well, it wasn't like I was leaving early either. It was pretty close to the end of the con, and we just had to start packing up games, that's all.
Sure, whatever. It's fine.
The simple fact, folks, though, is this game is extremely fun. And it does have a learning curve. I don't think it's as steep as Vast's learning curve, but it does have a learning curve, and it's definitely going to have a learning curve from game to game as to how to play your faction well.
Sure.
Right? Like after my first game, I was like, I want to play the same faction again. I thought the other factions were cool, but I wanted to get better at my faction. I felt like I knew how to do it.
Right.
The game also has alternate victory conditions that can show up. You can, just say, I'm going to control a bunch of mice areas, and I can win the game that way. Lord of the Mice type thing.
Right.
And I should mention, it looks amazing.
Yes.
It has this cute artwork and stuff, but not uber cute. It just, the board, and it doesn't have a gazillion pieces, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy with this. This is easily one of the best games of the year for me. Root.
Yeah, this one was not on my radar until showing up to Dice Tower Con, seeing it out and seeing the art design. It's very storybook-like, the design style. The piece, like the little vagabond meeple, is adorable. It has a shifty look just for the playing piece. And then, I barely could pay attention to what the other folks were doing because I was so concerned with my particular guy. But just adored it. And it's now very high on my radar, and I will likely be seeking out more plays of this. So another one that was new to me that was on my want-to-play list at Dice Tower Con was one of the Spiel des Jahres nominees, Luxor. This is a game by Rudiger Dorn, published by Queen Games. And this is the one that I sort of didn't know anything about when the nominations came out. Luxor is a bit of a race game. You are moving around a tomb, sort of a spiral pattern from the outside to the inside, and racing into the center, but it's also a race for points. It's not just whoever gets to the middle that's going to win. It's who has positioned all of their explorers properly. And the way you move your explorers is through card play. You have a hand of 5 cards, and you can only play the outside cards. So the first card or the last card in your hand, you can play that. That will move one of your characters. You start out with 2, and you can gradually earn more as the game goes on. And then, after you've spent that card, you draw a new card, and that goes in the center, in the position 3 of your hand. So you can sort of gradually work the cards outward so that they can be played in your hand. It's an interesting hand management, has a little bit of bonanza to it as you're using these cards. And as you position your characters on different tiles, you may claim some of them. If you get, say, 2 of your explorers on a particular tile that has 2 little symbols on it, you can claim that tile, and you are collecting sets. There's 3 different suits of treasures, and if you get complete sets of them, that will earn you more and more points as the game continues. There's also other tiles that'll give you extra bonus keys. You need a key to get to the very center of the board. It can earn you some blind points. It can earn you some wild tiles that can fill in those sets, moving you forward and backward around the board. You can also buy special cards that are even better, than your basic cards that are in the deck at the beginning of the game. But once you use those, they go in the discard pile, and they can be drawn by somebody else. So you only get the use of that great card that one time, and then you're sort of taking the luck of the draw after that. It has shades of Cartagena as well, because you have to sort of keep your guys clustered to try and claim some of these tiles. You want to position them so that they can utilize some of these spaces. And then, of course, at the end of the game, the farther you've gotten your characters forward, the more points it will be worth. You earn points simply for making it far enough into the tomb. You make lots of points if you get into the center first. Once 2 players get into the center, that triggers the end of the game. You also get points for those sets. You get points for some blind scarabs that you can earn throughout there's a lot of ways to earn points. But it's not that complicated a game. It has some novel mechanisms. It reminds me of those other games I mentioned. But I was very pleasantly surprised with Luxor. I think when I first got an explanation of it, I was like, okay, it sounds all right. It doesn't really sound fantastic, but I was very pleased with the whole thing. I liked how the wheels were turning and trying to position your guys properly. It was a lot of fun, and I think it's deserving of the nomination. So big thumbs up for me for Luxor.
Yeah, Eric obviously likes this more than I do. I have a few problems with it. One, just a small one, I guess. I don't like those spaces that when you land on them, you move 3 forward. What kind of nonsense is that?
I guess.
That's like from games from the 60s.
Maybe.
But also I found that if you run all the way to the end and you push and push and push, I don't know how you can be stopped. But honestly, the game's super lucky. There's some cards that are better than others. And it's fine. I don't dislike the game, but I don't feel like I'm making any real choices over the course of the game.
Interesting. Maybe I was fooled.
Oh, yeah. Okay, don't pull that one on me.
No, I thought I was making great choices. But maybe I was being lied to the whole time.
I'm going to get a new co-host that's not so mean to me by making me sound dumb.
I guess I'm in rare form today.
Or, as someone might say, Tom, you do that to yourself. Thank you!
See, I had that opportunity, and I didn't take it. See, I'm really a nice person.
Yeah, but there's people listening who are going to say that. All right.
I'm letting the listener make that decision.
Let's move to the next game.
Sure.
Ranking. Although I think this game is pronounced Ranking.
Sure.
I'm not sure, but it says the winner becomes the new Ranking. And it has it split up into different words.
Okay. But are you ranking things?
You are, so I'm not sure what the... Okay, who cares? It's a Stephen Dora game, and it's from Rio Grande Games, and it's from 2010. I know it. An 8-year-old game.
Okay.
What? I found this at a flea market last year, and I was going through, and I was like, a game where you rank things? I am intrigued. I rank everything. I rank all sorts of things, and that's what this game does. It comes with sheets of different items. There's like different tiles, all different tiles, and items might be a pig, a dog, a boat, a treasure chest, whatever. They're just simple drawings of items. And each round of the game, you're gonna draw like a question tile that will basically it picks something that you're going to be ranking. So maybe, for example, it might say the most expensive thing, or what do teens find more crass? Okay, so it might be a question like that. And everyone picks an item from their hand, puts it in the middle, and then you put in 2 random items from the deck. You shuffle these and you put them in the middle of a tower that has 6 spots. All the items are in this one row. Then on your turn, you pick any row that has 2 or more items. So on the first turn, it's the middle row, the only row. And you take those 2 items, you compare them, you tell everybody why one item is better than the other in this category.
Okay.
So you move that item up, and you move the other item down. And as time goes by, some items move up, some move down. It's possible for items to move back up and back down. But eventually, one item will hit the very top of the tower, and one item will hit the very bottom of the tower, in which case the round is over. Now, during the round, you have a marker in every other player's color. If you think a tile is another player's, you can put that marker on that tile at any time, basically. At the end of a round, everyone reveals which tile was theirs, and you get points equal to how high is on the tower minus the number of your color tokens that are on it. So if you're really obvious about moving your own, you won't get as many points. Although you'll still move it up the tower a little bit, I guess.
Sure.
So the game is kind of a mix of try to fool people as to which one you really have the tower, and full of actual arguments over, families value pearls more than they value flowers because you can use pearls to buy food and flowers just look pretty.
Huh.
You know what I mean? And so it's kind of interesting. It has a mix of that party game-esque thing with a little bit of a bluffing style game together. And I thought it was pretty fun, actually. I should have assumed so because it's Stefan Dora and he makes really good games. But this game has no buzz. Like, it came out in 2010, and probably it was a Hansum Gluck game. Rio Grande hasn't for like the last 20 years really, or last 15 years, really promoted their games much. Unless that game is called Dominion or Race for the Galaxy.
or they're putting out an ad in Spielbox magazine. They do that.
Sure, but this is ranked on Board Game Geek. This is ranked 12,845.
Yes.
There's only 179 rankings of it, and the average ranking is 5.5. So it looks like I am liking it more than average. But I thought it was fun. It's, it's a little apples to apples-ish in some ways, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I don't know that I'd tell people to go out and get it, but you might be able to get it for cheap, actually.
Probably.
So anyway, that's ranking, or ranking.
Yeah, you could probably get it in one of those booths at the conventions that sort of liquidate all the Rio Grande titles.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a slightly heavier game for my second today. That's Quebec. This is from Philippe Baudouin and Pierre Poissant-Marquis. And Le Scorpion Mask and Yistari. I think it was a co-production with them. This is a game from a couple of years ago, and it is, as I said, a pretty heavy one. It's ultimately an area control game. It plays over 4 rounds, 4 centuries, actually. And at the end of every century, there's a big scoring round, and you'll score these, 5 areas of the board. But the way you get the cubes to those areas of the board is interesting. There's a bunch of areas, like action spaces, and certain ones of these will be activated each round. It's a random setup at the beginning, and some will activate in round 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So it's a random assortment. But each of these tiles that say 1, 2, 3, and 4 are related to one of these action spaces that come in 4 colors that match to the 4 corners of the board where you'll eventually get the cubes. So you have one little pawn, like a builder pawn, and you can, as one of your actions, say, I'm building this building, which is related to one of those action spaces.
Do you have to say it like that?
Yes, just like that. I'm building this building. Yes, that's the role play aspect of Quebec. Then another action that you can do is to put cubes, workers. You have both active and passive workers, kind of like El Grande, where you have to sort of shuttle them into your active area and then move them out. But you can place cubes on somebody else's building and then activate that cool action that the building is associated with. If you do that to your own building, nothing special happens other than you trying to build your own building. Another thing you can do if there are cubes on that building is finish building it. You can move your builder somewhere else and complete the building, and depending on whether it was 1, 2, or 3 slots, or even 0 slots filled on that building, you earn points for the future. You can also claim leader things that give you special powers, but I'm not even going to get into that. All those cubes that were on that building that you just flipped over go to the corner that's associated with that color. So if I finish a purple building, I'm going to send all those cubes to the purple corner. Once all of the buildings of a round are completed, you do this scoring. And not only you start in one corner in the 1st century and then a different corner in the 2nd century, there's even a citadel that you start with, but I won't yell this time. There's a citadel that you start with, and then you move to one of these corners, and it's different each round, and that confuses me. If you win If you have more cubes than somebody else or even tie for the victory, not only do you get 1 point for each cube that you have in that corner, you also get a bonus of half of those cubes, and half of those cubes move to the next corner, clockwise. So you begin this cascade. If I do well over here, I then have a good chance of winning the next one as well. And if I win in that one too, then half of those cubes move to the next corner. And so has somebody planned to build up enough cubes to defeat you after that cascade happens? And then you set up for the next round and hopefully earn more points than your opponents. There is so much going on here, a lot of balls to keep in the air. Which leader do you claim to get those special powers? What do I start? Which building do I start? Hoping that others will want the ability, but then I'm letting them get the ability, and I'm not getting that ability. But I'm getting the points because they are building in my building. There's also an area positioning aspect, board position aspect at the end, that your largest grouping of your own buildings get extra points. And so you want to have a large cluster, but I have to get there before you do. But maybe that's not a very popular position. There's a lot. There's a lot to juggle with. I've played this twice now, and I'm still sort of, my head is spinning. It's fun. It's tricky. I'm enjoying it, but it's hard. That's Quebec from Le Scorpion Mask and Astari.
I don't know. This one I have not played. I've heard that it's good, but I don't know if I'll ever get around to it. When did it come out? Like 5 years ago, maybe?
I want to say like 2013, 2014, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Alrighty, well, still, I mean, and these are just a few of the games that we've played over the last week. I got to play a lot of games at Dice Tower Con.
Yeah.
It was excellent. We had a great time. I thought I would do the top 10 games checked out of the library.
Yes, I saw those stats come out today.
Yeah, people like that sort of thing. So number 1 was Azul.
Yeah.
Which really should surprise no one. They just announced Azul Stained Glass, which looks amazing.
That looks pretty.
I like the stained glass theme. The bathroom tile theme is not as exciting to me. So Santorini was the second highest one. Now, this one surprised me a bit. It's a 2-player game, I guess, and you can really bang out games of it quickly.
I guess.
And Sagrada number 3. So those are like 3 very, like, now sometimes people are like, well, where's the game? I thought the game I played was always out. Well, sure, but if we only have one copy of the game and it takes 2 hours to play.
Right. There's only so many times it can be checked out.
And you take 30 minutes to get it in and out of the library, so It's like out for 3 hours. You know, it can only be out so many times. But if we have multiple copies, and it takes a short time, so it is what it is. Role Player was number 4, which makes me happy because we only had one copy of that last year in Dice Tower Con, and that was the one someone like checked out for 2 days straight or something.
Nice.
Great Western Trail, though, 108 plays.
That's a lot.
I don't remember seeing anyone play it.
Huh.
But maybe I did, and I didn't notice it. Reef, 76 times it was checked out.
And that's not counting the Hot Games version, which...
Or all the demo games that were played in the dealer hall. I would guess Reef was one of the most played games at the convention.
Yeah, it's probably up there with Azul.
That's 76 times. Photosynthesis, 70 times. If I missed it, Azul was 378, Santorini, 166, Sagrada, 147, Role Player, 131. Anyway, Photosynthesis, 70 times, Barren Park, 67. That's kind of like a sleeper hit.
Yeah. I mean, it's still got buzz.
You know, but I think it doesn't get as much buzz as like the trio from Stronghold.
Like Indian Summer and Spring.
Indian Summer, Spring something, and the new Fall, whatever. Okay, anyway. I thought those games got more buzz, but Barren Park, it must just be like the decade of Phil Walker Harding. His games do pretty well. Terraforming Mars 66 times, and considering that is a longer game, that one I did see being played everywhere, and I'm confident there were many games that people brought with them. Thanos Rising, Avengers Infinity War, 60 times, which is pretty impressive because that was also on the Hot Games table.
It was.
And did you play that at all?
I actually played, there was a guy at the USAopoly booth that was hovering and wanted to try it, and I happened to be there, and I had some time. I'm like, I'll play with you, and we beat it. We actually won. Yes.
Lies.
We did.
Lies.
We won against Thanos. But yes, I actually I went home on my flight home with somebody who was at the con as well, and he was talking about games he saw, and he was wondering if the Hot Games positioning for Thanos was meaning it was a good game or that somebody had paid for it to be there. And I was like, no, it's a pretty good game. My kids really like it. He's like, oh, well, I guess I'm disappointed I didn't play it then.
Okay, as far as I know, since I picked the Hot Games, it's possible that maybe one was paid for and I just missed that. I'm missing the money then too. But I picked the Hot Games. I mean, well, the library said these should be in Hot Games, and I said sure. Yeah. When I heard that one, I said yes, because that's hot because it's Marvel. Mm-hmm. But I like it. Clank was also 60, and Tokaido was 60. That's one that really boggles my mind. Tokaido?
Interesting.
That's an older game. Yeah. That's pretty cool, though. All right. I am so excited now to introduce to you Mr. Geoff Engelstein. There are times in my life where I've disagreed with him, but I cannot tell you how much I agree with him on this next segment.
Excellent.
3, 2, 1,
go. It's time for Game Tech with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
I used to be a basketball fan. It was unavoidable if you were in Boston in the 80s. But there's one aspect of the game that has always bothered me, to the point that I basically stopped watching basketball for the last 5 years. I gave it another chance a few months ago during the NCAA tournament, but the issue was just as bad as ever. The last few minutes of the game are just an endless series of fouls and free throws. The first 90% of the game is exciting and fun, but the last few minutes were a total slog. Now, for those who aren't familiar with basketball, at the end of the game, the team who is behind will, frequently, intentionally foul the other team, hoping that they miss their free throws, they get the ball back, and close the lead. I know people that like this part of the game, but to me it's just a game design defect as far as I'm concerned. Basketball is the only sport I'm aware of where intentionally fouling, intentionally breaking the rules in other words, becomes the correct strategy so consistently. As I said, this is a game design issue. The team with the lead can hold on to the ball for large chunks of time, even with a shot clock, and fouling is the only method the other team has to get the ball back faster. So, if this is a game design issue, is there a game design solution? Well, there have been a lot of proposals over the years, giving the fouled team the option to inbound the ball instead of taking free throws, for example. These usually make it even harder for teams that are behind to make up the deficit. So, the end of the game loses lots of tension. Is there a way to stop teams from fouling while leaving the door open for come-from-behind victories? Well, maybe. There's a new idea out there put forward by middle school principal Nick Elam, and the Elam ending, as it is being called, is getting some traction and is being used this month in a major basketball tournament. Now, here's how it works. With a certain amount of time remaining, 3 minutes in a pro game or 4 minutes in a college game, the game clock is completely turned off. 7 points are added to the leading team's score, and that becomes the winning target score. The first team to meet or exceed the target wins the game. So, for example, if at the 3-minute mark the score is 100 to 96, the target becomes 107. The first team to reach 107 points wins the game. This solution is clever in a number of ways. First, it takes away the incentive for the intentional foul. The point of intentionally fouling is to save time and basically trade time for points. But now time is completely off the table. Only points matter. So giving your opponent a few points to save time in the hopes that you will score more points doesn't work anymore. Giving your opponent points just puts them that much closer to the target score. This new design changes the incentives for the team that's behind. So the last 3 minutes looks and feels like real basketball, not some start and stop foul shooting slog. And yet, there's still plenty of opportunity for a team that's behind to come back if they play solid defense. The solutions that continue to run the clock to conclude the game can reach a point where it's basically mathematically impossible to come from behind. With this ending, like in baseball, it's always possible to close the gap before the game ends. Also, as soon as a team comes within range of winning, every shot they take is a potential game winner. There's always a walk-off winning basket. Yes, you lose the buzzer-beating shot when someone flings up a shot with half a second to go, but in exchange, you get tremendous excitement, particularly if both teams are within range of the target. Let's say our target is 107 and the score is 106 to 105. The next basket from anybody wins the game. How exciting is that? And normally, I don't like changing the rules towards the end of the game. I think it can feel artificial and can make it confusing for viewers. But games do it successfully, and even other sports do this. Some of the rules for American football change with 2 minutes left, like how injuries are dealt with and the effect of certain penalties. So there is certainly a precedent. And as I said, the Elam ending is being used for all games in a national basketball event called the Basketball Tournament. It's an open tournament with the winners getting $2 million, sponsored by ESPN. And so far, the Elam ending has been getting really good reviews from fans and sports analysts, so it'll be interesting to see if it spreads more widely. Game design problems have game design solutions. And next, someone needs to get rid of the penalty shootout in the World Cup. Please, I'm begging you. This is Geoff Engelstein with GameTech.
100% agreement here with Geoff. I have for years. Now, I just read about this like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, wow, finally someone agrees with me, because I never understood how a basketball game, the last 2 minutes, took like as long as the rest of it seemed the whole quarter took.
Yeah. I mean, I was sort of I heard about this as well, and there was like a video on Facebook that was talking about it, and for a while, my initial reaction was, well, you can't just change everything. What this is how basketball ends. But then I thought, rules get changed all the time to make it a more interesting contest. And when I thought about it, this is so much more interesting to actually have a competition down to the end. And yes, earning a bunch of points during the main game matters because that increases your lead, but it does give the other team a chance to catch up if they play better. I think it sounds like a fascinating way to keep the tension of the game going without all of those stops. And I never understood the foul count and, one player, if they get too many fouls or the team gets too many fouls, how it all changes. That trying to keep track of all that information it's an extra burden.
I get the fouls. You should have fouls, right? You should penalize people, but you should be able to foul someone on purpose. That never made sense to me. That like, ooh, what a smart move. He broke a rule of the game.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And then people will tell me, well, no, it's just part of the game. Yeah, but it wasn't fun to watch even.
But yeah.
Yeah, so I hope this takes over basketball, frankly.
Well, it all depends on how this tournament goes. I haven't seen the results of this tournament that Geoff was talking about and any reports on how well that worked, but it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm opposed to fake catch-up mechanisms, but I also don't like when you're playing a game and you're like, oh, I'm out of this. And I don't think I played games before, notably, what's the desert one from Days of Wonder?
Five Tribes?
5 Tribes, where some of the last turns I'm like, oh, boy. And the guy's sitting there thinking, and someone's like, ooh, I see something good for you. And I'm like, shut up! Shut up! He was about to move. The guy's like, what?
Huh? There's something I need? Let me start over.
Let me start over. I'm like, no. Oh. Yeah, so, yay! All right, so that's our positive message of the day. Let's have a negative one.
And now, another tale of board gaming horror.
That's horrific.
Gather round, children. I am a Spaniard who moved many years ago to the cold north of Denmark, and so it happens that you fall in love and settle with the Vikings. I started listening many years ago to the Dice Tower, especially peaking up in the time where I was training for long-distance running, where an episode will match my 10K run. I think this started around the year 2011. And so I will listen to the podcast on my way to work. So together with the Dice Tower, I would listen to The Secret Cabal and Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and many other podcasts. I have to say that my English is very good, to the point that it has been my main language all the years I have been in Denmark, and I often listen to university debates from many different English-speaking languages, as I like to also listen about global politics. Movies, TV shows, my whole culture center point gravitates around the language of Shakespeare. Anyway, one day I was listening and enjoying your episode 500 in my way back home from work, and one section piqued my interest. I remember you talking about some puns at the end of the episode, and putting some examples on the podcast. It was at that moment that I understood a part that for years I just thought was like a mini commercial or a shout-out to another podcast or something like that. I really thought, all those years, that provided by Through the Rages or provided by Flower Grid were real podcasts or companies. Embarrassment crossed my inner core as I then understood that just a simple end pun has just slipped my brain all those years. It was at that moment where I started to be a little more humble about my English skills.
Now, apologize.
I'm very sorry. That was the most meta tale of horror we've had.
It was. But the reason I put it in this particular episode is because I thought maybe we should, every once in a while, point out that, yes, indeed, those are not correct. I remember the first time I heard one on Card Talk, which is where Eric stole this idea from.
Yes.
And the very first time I heard it, I thought, that's fake, right? And then there was a whole bunch of other ones, and I was like, yes, that's fake.
Yes.
Right?
Card Talk does a whole bunch of them, but they often do the same ones over and over again, which is, repetition's good.
Well, they also do a whole lot per episode. We do one, so...
Right. And also, I guess we should say that it's not all me. There is a whole thread on Board Game Geek where people suggest them, and I sometimes tweak them, but a lot of them are listener-suggested. So it's a whole extra punish community over there that are suggesting great puns for the end credits.
All right. Well, speaking of other questions and questions in general, let's get to them.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
How many meeples tall are you?
How many game pieces have you broken with that gavel you use?
If you could eat at a restaurant based on any game, what would it be?
And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
Our first question is from Daniel, who discovered an old game that he found that had a whole bunch of stuff in it that he liked, the theme and mechanisms, and he doesn't want to go and find and pay for this out of print, and he just wants to make a copy, which I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not going to recommend that at all. But to find this game, to get this game, he read about it, and he said he feels like in this particular game there might be some dated mechanisms and balancing issues that should be fixed, like Restoration Games is doing with their things. And he said that I, Tom, have said in the past, forget about it in regards to remaking a game yourself, adding up actual printing costs and time, it's not worth it. And typically I would agree, but then he says, but. All right, so here's some questions. How does one inquire about licensing for a game that's been out of print for a long time from a publisher that no longer exists? Maybe tracking down a designer. How does something like this work? How much of a range in price does something like this run? Is this typically something that's a fixed term like 5 years? Are you allowed to license a game and change things like rules and gameplay? And he says this is terrible to ask. Would it be better just to come up with your own game in this case and have it heavily draw inspiration on this older game, especially if you plan on changing the gameplay a bit? That's a lot of questions that we are not going to be able to give extremely definitive answers on. But I can give you what I know from talking to a lot of different publishers. So in this case, when you're tracking down a game, tracking down a designer is not a bad thing to do, but I would recommend making sure the designer has the rights to the game.
Yes.
Very specifically, I've seen a case where a publisher got the rights from the designer, but someone else also had it.
Yes.
So Eric knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So there's that. But sometimes that's a really hard thing to do. In fact, when I talk to the folks at Restoration Games, it's one of the biggest challenges they have is finding out who has the rights for the game and how to get them.
Mm-hmm.
How much does it cost? Well, that's all up to the person. They might give you the game for $10. They might charge an exorbitant amount of money. Who knows? And I wouldn't know what they would charge. And is it a fixed term for 5 years? Again, every contract's different. A lot of publishers, when they publish a game, will basically have some sort of perpetuity thing to it. As long as they're publishing it and as long as it's being sold, they can keep it. But games aren't sold forever, so eventually stop selling, and the rights might revert back to the author, etc. That's how these contracts go.
Yeah, but that's part of the problem with some of these older games is that those contracts don't necessarily have those clauses. And so what happens when the company no longer exists? Have the assets been sold to someone else? Does the designer get it? Not all of these older contracts had those stipulations. That seems to be more common now just because we as a hobby know more of these pitfalls that can show up.
Right, that's absolutely correct. And so he says, are you allowed to license a game and change things like rules and gameplay? I think that one's just self-evident. So many older games have come back, and the rules and gameplay have changed in them. So yes, of course. Here's the question, though, the last one. Is it better to come up with your own game and have it heavily draw inspiration on the older game? Well, I've done that, right? Mm-hmm. When I designed Nothing Personal, I definitely drew inspiration from Kremlin. I didn't want to remake Kremlin, but I liked some of the ideas Kremlin had, and we started with those ideas. By the time we were done, our game was something completely different.
Right.
And this happens in the game design industry all the time. You take inspiration from other games and go on and do things. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, like Jeff Engelstein, the Engelstein family's game, Dragon and Flagon, was also based on an older Swashbuckler, I think is the name of the game.
Right.
They sort of took that and originally started making a new version of that game, but eventually diverted from it and made their own thing.
Right. So that sort of thing happens. I mean, if you're just straight up copying another game, yeah, you'll probably get called out on it for sure. You know, people will mock you and say things about you, but other than that, I think you're fine if you make a lot of changes to it.
I think often, you can often save yourself from some of that backlash by acknowledging the original game as a jumping off point in the rules. That, if you get a little paragraph at the end, some design notes, and say, I was inspired by this, and I really liked this and this about it, and I hopefully have taken that in a different direction. Hope you like it. And acknowledging that, you could always talk to the designer and say, hey, I really like your design. And I hope you don't mind if I try some things. And I would imagine most people would be excited about that, even if you aren't directly licensing their game.
There you go.
Joe says, I was wondering if you either knew of a children's level escape room type game or knew one of the normal ones that were on the easier side. I have an 8 and 9-year-old that love games, can play quite advanced games like Pandemic or Dominion. They want to try an escape room game, but I want them to feel like they're really participating, not just watching me figure out the puzzles. My kids love playing the unlock games, especially Squeak and Sausage is the scenario that they've enjoyed a lot. They like scouring the cards for the hidden numbers. They find that that's a good way for them to participate. Oh, Dad, there's something hidden in the corner here. Also, the Island of Dr. Gravely's Retreat? Escape the Room, I think, is that series. That one's geared a little younger. It's got some physical puzzles that are good for younger players to work through. They've enjoyed that one as well. But it has happened with, say, the exit games, where I start with them around the table and they eventually lose interest if the puzzles get too hard. So I totally understand what Joe is looking for here.
Yeah. Not a problem at all. I think I agree with Eric pretty much exactly here. The exit and unlock games are probably a little heavy for kids. Depends how old the kids are, but the other ones are fantastic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is from Morgan, and Morgan says, we've been in hobby for 2 years and are starting to feel like they're catching up and becoming educated and experienced gamers. But they have that problem everyone does where it's like there's hundreds of good games. So for newcomers to the hobby, what's better? Focusing on catching up, like playing older classic games like Puerto Rico 7 Wonders. It's not that old. Merchants of Venus, Agricola, Lords of Waterdeep. Or start fresh and ride the wave of the new. It seems there could be some disdainful, oh, you've never played blank, to those of us who are just trying to wade through the deep, deep waters of the hobby.
Yep.
Well, I got a definitive answer, but I'm going to let Eric go first.
Oh, okay. Well, for one thing, you've never played, that's just a jerky thing to do. And really, that can be a disservice to people who are new to the hobby. You might get more mileage, though, out of exploring some of those older titles. I mean, part of the... it is exciting to be on the leading edge and trying to catch the wave of the brand new stuff. But if you start exploring those older titles, you can get used copies, you can get reissues, you can get more inexpensive, probably catch some things that are in the bargain bin, and pick up some of these well-regarded titles that just aren't at the cutting edge right now, and still find some great material to play. So you may find quite the fertile ground if you go backward a little bit. Yeah, pick up the occasional new release, but I think going backward is not a bad idea.
Okay, so Eric's wrong.
Okay.
Forget that old stuff. You don't need to play it. Sure, there's great old classic games, but don't feel like you have to play any of them. You can play games that just come out in 2018 and farther, and you're okay. I played more games than you. Probably to Joe. I have, and I don't think you'll ever catch up to me. But that doesn't make me a better gamer than you. It makes me maybe a more knowledgeable gamer, but that doesn't necessarily make me like, ooh. You know, like someone says, I never played Puerto Rico. I'm like, what? That's kind of a cool classic game, but you don't have to have played it.
No.
Whatever. You just put Puerto Rico on an overrated list, so you can't even talk about Puerto Rico.
Okay, I'm not allowed to talk about Puerto Rico anymore. But also, these games did not burst into flames after they became 5 years old.
Oh, sure, but you don't have to go back and play, is what I'm saying. There's like sometimes this thing like, well, until you play these classic games, you are not a gamer.
Right. I'm saying explore at your own pace. Don't feel the need to go back, but there is treasure back there that's worth exploring.
Fine, I will agree on that. Eric is now back into the right zone.
Woohoo!
That's correct. I just worry sometimes that there's this whole, well, if you haven't played this, no, I think you're fine. Again, if you walked in Dice Tower Con, where we just came from, and you played some games and you liked everything and had a great time, that's perfectly acceptable. And all you played were new things. I think you'd be fine. And also, you'll find that a lot of these quote-unquote older classics may not hold up as well as people say they have. Most of them will, but some, like, I don't know, I'll randomly pick one. Merchants of Venus. They don't hold up well at all.
Randomly, yeah.
Man, speaking of that, just to the side, Eric, you played Lords of Venus. I think I saw you play. I think you played it twice at Dice Tower Con.
I played it twice, yes.
So I saw both of those games, and those both went well, I'm sure. But that was the only time I saw that played. But man, did you see how many people were playing Twilight Imperium?
Yes, there was almost a whole hallway that just had maybe 2 or 3 games going on simultaneously. That was a popular game at Dice Tower Con.
Yeah, and I saw it being played more than just that time where all those people were playing it. I think every time I walked through that hall, somebody was playing Twilight. That's definitely like a convention game for sure.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Go figure. I wasn't expecting that many people to want to play it. But if you like Twilight Imperium, you should go to Dice Tower Con.
Apparently.
That's our new tagline.
So Ivan has a rapid-fire list of questions. So let's just start at the first. Let's do them one at a time here. Ivan was recently at a university board game night. In fact, while he was at university, he started a board game night. And there was a close to 50-50 mix of girls and boys. However, getting home during the summer, he went to a local friendly gaming store, and there wasn't a single girl in the whole building, despite being a full night. And was wondering if the reason for that could be the focus on, say, Warhammer 40K or Magic the Gathering focus, or fantasy or war themes or tend to be more masculine. Hence, they could be attributed to why game groups in America are almost all male. Do we think this is the case? And is wondering if this could explain why in early years of board gaming it was primarily a man's hobby and is more of a struggle getting more equality in that mix.
I'm not sure.
I will say there are,
not sure I understand his question here. I think like my game group is not all mostly male. There's a lot of females who come and play games there. It's more men than women, but I don't think it's mostly men. I think this is changing across the board, and it's just changing in some places slower than others. That's all.
Yeah, and there are plenty of women who love war games and fantasy themes as well. I don't know if this is necessarily the reasoning, although my wife, for the longest time, categorized many of these fantasy themes or variable player power themes as boy games, and that's also not true. I don't know if that's necessarily the key. Speaking of fantasy games, why do you call fantasy games generic fantasy? This is the only genre that has a negative connotation built in the name. Trading in the Mediterranean, roll and move, and even zombie games are all genres that a lot of people dislike, but only fantasy has such a descriptor. Why is that? Is it wrong? I think if we continue to describe this theme like this, it will deteriorate everyone's opinion of fantasy, which in my opinion would be a shame.
All right. Well,
there's a PS too. I personally love fantasy as a theme since it provides room for personalization and creative design, though I admit that a lot of games do not take advantage of this, using old tropes from Dungeons & Dragons, and that's exactly it. It's using the same basic tropes that we call generic fantasy.
That's true. He answered his own question, but here's the thing. I don't call fantasy games generic fantasy. I call generic fantasy games generic fantasy. Like we just talked in this episode, for example, about Root. Root is fantasy, but I wouldn't call it generic fantasy. Generic fantasy is, hey, it's basically, again, the Dungeons & Dragons tropes. I got a warrior and a priest and a mage and a thief, and we're fighting orcs and goblins and trolls. That's what I get on the case for. When I find some new, interesting, like Gloomhaven is not generic fantasy. It's totally different characters and races and stuff. That's what I'm looking for. So when I say generic fantasy, I'm differentiating it from the rest of good fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically you could take that theme and plug it into any other generic. It's interchangeable with any other fantasy game that sticks to these basic tropes. It isn't anything distinctive or interesting about the characterization of these characters. That's the problem. What is your most complicated game that you own? Nowadays, it seems that simple, quick games are very popular, but once in a while, it's nice to play something crunchy. I had to think about this for a little bit. I think probably Through the Ages is the most complicated in the collection, but I could probably go with one of the splotter titles like Indonesia or Food Chain Magnate.
I don't even know. Maybe Through the Ages?
Yeah.
I feel like I have a complicated game that I'm forgetting about. So yeah.
I'm sure. Maybe it hasn't hit the table in a while, so you forgot about it.
I'm sure I'm forgetting something. So for now, I'm going to say... Pitch Car.
Yeah, sure. With all the expansions, maybe.
Oh, there's a lot of rules. I've made them all up, mostly.
In episode 207, you mentioned the Dice Tower Awards Hall of Fame, where you added several super influential and popular games that were 10 or more years old. Is that Hall of Fame still happening, or has this idea kind of disappeared?
Well, so let's see. I'm looking up when episode 207 came out. That was a while ago. It was our best games 2010. That's right, because I remember when we did the Hall of Fame, I said, Puerto Rico's going to be eligible next year, because it came out in 2001, and the next year was 2011. Yeah, that's something that I wasn't happy with where the Hall of Fame was at that point in time. We had a lot of people voting down games, and I felt like to vote on the Hall of Fame, you needed to be, well, now I'm going to kind of renege on what I said in an earlier question, but you need to be a little bit more knowledgeable about games to be able to vote in the Hall of Fame type thing. Just because you haven't heard of a game doesn't mean it doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. And you might say, no one cares or plays about that game. So I've been meaning to make a smaller maybe group subset of Dice Tower Awards where we pick the Hall of Fame. If we do it at this point, though, we're going to just redo it. And then adding some new games would not be a bad idea. Would not be a bad thing to do each year.
Yes, I think that was the intent when we put the list together. Like we started with 25 games or something like that, and then we would add a few every year. I think, if I recall correctly, the discussion was a little contentious, and we, other than Puerto Rico, we couldn't really agree on what should come in next. We figured out what that first wave was, but then we couldn't figure out how often we would add more games and what that next class would be. And things just sort of fell apart in that discussion.
Yeah, I don't know that it was that bad. It's just that it never got picked up again. And the Hall of Fame is a little bit more work than just saying, okay, and you look at the last year. You have to look at all games in general. So you're right. What we'll probably, if we did this, and I'm going to consider it, is we would do it near the end of this year or whatever, put together the initial Hall of Fame, and then each Dice Tower Awards, we would pick which games would be nominated to the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
We might even...
It would be a good discussion.
Yeah. We'll have to see. That's a good question.
Do you ever remember individual people who email you? It must be hard to keep up, especially when so many people have the same name.
This... folks, I don't mean to be rude, but sometimes people come up to me. I mean, it happens all the time at conventions. Someone say, oh, well, I emailed you a couple months ago. And I'm thinking, that doesn't narrow it down at all. Folks, I literally get over 100 emails every day. And while a lot of that stuff is not from people specifically, I get tons and tons and tons of private emails and people talking about things. And I'll forget specific people talking about something. Like someone will say, well, what about this, and this? And I'm like, sure, that sounds great. And then later on they'll say, you said this. And I'm like, oh, man, I forgot all about that conversation. There's a lot going on. And, yeah, I am thrilled when at a convention, someone just emailed me and they said, I really appreciate that you remembered me at the convention. I was like, I appreciated that fact, too. That I saw someone, I was like, I know who they are. Yeah. It's hard, I really apologize for this. I want to remember everyone that I meet and talk to, and I'm trying to work at it, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Or does it? I don't even think it sounds easy.
I try and, at least with faces, I try and keep people straight. And of course, I'm going to remember Ivan because Ivan asked this question, or at least Ivan has replaced any other Ivans that we had in the email queue. But even then, even faces can be forgotten. I made the mistake last Dice Tower Con of marching up to Ambi from Board Game Blitz and introducing myself. Hey, Ambi, how are you? So great to meet you. I was looking forward to meeting her because I knew her from her show, Board Game Blitz, and she gave me this funny look, like, oh hi, yeah, how's it going? And like a month later, we became friends on Facebook, and she posted a picture of a previous Dice Tower Con in which you and I, Tom, were taking a picture with her and her husband. Like we had met at least a year before then, and I didn't have that context and felt bad, and I had to apologize. But anyway, it happens. Oh, lastly, I want to ask you about anti-hype. Whenever a movie, a game, or idea becomes really popular, many people start resenting it. I've seen so much hate for Gloomhaven only because of how much people like it. People are saying on the internet that the Dice Tower Awards this year were only a Gloomhaven love fest. Why do people naturally start to dislike things that others rave about? I've never played Gloomhaven, but I find all this anti-hype for it a shame.
Yeah, this is going to happen with every game, right? Anytime a game is popular, there's going to be people who complain about it. Yeah, the awards this year are a Gloomhaven Love Fest. They weren't a Gloomhaven Love Fest. Sure, Gloomhaven won a lot of awards and more than any other year. Also, I'd like to point out, it's number 1 on Board Game Geek.
Yes.
So it's not like we were like, oh, let's pick a game and run with it. There's also like 90 people who vote on this. You can't run away with this. So, and I always tell people to look at the nomination list. And lots of games. There's lots of great games that come out every year. That's how these things work. But if you actually really don't like it, that's fine. But anti-hype's an easy thing to fall prey to. I do it all the time. People tell me this game's great. I'm like, we'll see about that. I'll tell you if it's great. It's probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, this happened when Pandemic Legacy took the number 1 slot as well. People said, no, this should never have happened, sort of reaction. Whereas if you like it, you're like, yeah, great. I think it's great to be there. But if one of your favorites has now been knocked down a couple of pegs by a game you don't particularly appreciate, I think there's a little bit more of something having been taken away from you, even though, unless you're the designer or the publisher, it wasn't taken away from you. And that with Gloomhaven being number 1, if you didn't agree with that ranking to begin with, you're especially sensitive to it winning some awards.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we jump into our top 10, just some real quick comments. a huge thanks to everyone who came to Dice Tower Con. It was amazing. In a few months, we'll be opening up Dice Tower Con 2019 registration. So make sure that you check that out and get ready to come back.
Miss it.
It's going to be great again. But there's a lot of volunteers, a lot of people who made that con great. Consider being a volunteer, but at the same time, we want to say a big thanks to all the people who did volunteer, because those people give up their own gaming time.
Yeah.
To help make the con better for others. And that's I was talking to a couple people, and they said how they liked volunteering, but then they were thinking about how many games they could have played had they not volunteered. And I said, that's true, but I also really appreciate the fact that you made the con that much better for other people.
It's true. I talked with one volunteer who said, this is my first year volunteering. I wasn't sure how I'd like it. It is going to be on my list of things to do every time, because it means you get to interact with a lot of people. You get to make a lot of friends, and really help make the con a strong, teaching, friendly place, welcoming place. Really a great thing to do, and make it I think that's probably one of the reasons why people have enjoyed the con so much, is such a terrific volunteer presence.
I agree, and I would also like to say how much I really appreciate just everybody who helped out and came out, and all the people said some really nice things. So we're not going to continue to brag on our own con. You can just go out there and see a lot of other people who said things were great there, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get to the top 10.
Do it.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
All right, so in this episode, we're talking about our top 10 family games, but I have been less than honest here.
What?
Not less than honest.
What?
But no, don't act like you don't know.
You're the traitor?
What I wanted to do here, and I wanted to talk from a personal aspect. So when we get to the People's Choice, they're going to pick games that I think are great family games. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That's what we asked for, and I'm not saying that. But I told Eric, let's talk about games that have worked really well with our families.
Right.
Like our personal families, because I think that's an important thing for us to talk about, because we know this stuff from experience, and these might not work well for everybody, but they might work well with us. And so a lot of these, there's a lot of stuff here that's not necessarily going to be new. You may have heard some of this before. We won't, go on and on about these things.
Right.
Because we've talked about this in the past, but I thought this would be a fun thing to do, and maybe this will be completely different in 10 years, right? As our kids age, right. And maybe for me in 10 years, I might be having played some games with grandkids already.
Maybe.
That's really possible,
Well, 10 years, yeah.
In 10 years, Melody will be 28.
It's quite possible.
I'm getting old.
Yeah. Speaking, we might as well go with a baseline here. Let's do a quick rundown of how old our kids are right now. My kids are 7 and 10 as of this recording in 2018.
Mine are 18, 15, 14, 12, 10, 9, 4.
Okay.
So this is not necessarily just our kids. Some of them are with just my kids, and some are also with my wife and kids. I didn't pick, personally, for this list, I didn't pick any, me and my wife. That's a different list of games.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I don't know. Let's find out. Also, for this list, we're not going to do that whole yuckity yuck. It's coming up later, because we'll just talk about our games as they come up, because our experiences are going to be different.
Exactly. Got it.
Number 10.
So my first game was going to be Marvel Legendary, but then I got to thinking...
Oh, I couldn't understand why Legendary was in parentheses here.
Yeah, no. It was going to be Legendary. That was on the list, and then I got thinking that, no, there's a game that was the first one my son was especially excited to buy. This was one that didn't really make it terribly high on my list of games I wanted, but he said, I like this so much, I want to play this. I'm going to find a used copy, and got one in an auction at one of our local conventions, and that is Quartz. This is the game about mining and pulling gems from a bag. It's actually being re-released as a Snow White game by USAopoly in the next couple of months. And he loves it. And I've played it a few times with him now, and it keeps hitting the table with his little brother. He's taught it to him. They love to play it. So I get sucked into these quartz games more often than I necessarily would have chosen, but it has produced some really fun moments at the table, and it knocked Legendary to number 11. My number 10 is quartz.
Yeah, man, there's so many games that my kids have like co-opted in this way. My number 10 is Sorry Sliders. I could have picked a lot of dexterity games here, but Sorry Sliders is one of the few games that all the kids have played. I still remember the fact we used this in a video. We were playing it so much. We used it back with Z Garcia when he first was playing games with Dice Tower. Eric did the voiceover. We made a really funny video of us forcing Z to play Sorry Sliders.
Yep.
Which wasn't too far off from the truth. This was just one of those dexterity games that really worked well. My kids played Sorry Sliders before they played Sorry, because that's the way to do it.
Interesting.
But this was just a fun experience for us. There's a lot of dexterity games I could have put on the list. I actually considered putting Pitch Car, but then I realized I very rarely play that with just the family. That's more of a, I take it to church or other bigger events and play it there.
Yeah, I think Sorry Sliders, we have it. It's in the closet, but I have not pulled it out with the kids. I think it's been stuck in the closet for a while. I should pull it out.
Number 9.
Number 9 is the storytelling adventure Mice and Mystics. It's a little higher up on the list, farther back, because my youngest has not played it yet, but my older son played through the entire first adventure. We were totally into it. It would be like our after-school appointment every day, and if we failed at one, we would queue it back up and play the next day. It was a wonderful adventure. We started as a story. I read it as a bedtime story to get him interested in the characters, and then there's a game here we can play, and he got super excited about that. I'm looking forward to resetting and playing this with both of them. We never got all the way through Downwood Tales, the big box expansion, and so I want to reset. We got a few adventures in. I want to reset with that box and play through with both boys. But that'll probably move it up the list a little bit. Number 9, Mice and Mystics.
Yeah, if I was guessing the games that were going to make your list, this would definitely have been one of the ones I would have chosen.
This isn't a surprise.
No, it's not. Actually, my surprise is that it was as low as it was. My number 9 is not technically a board game, although I would argue that it is, and that's the Jackbox Suite. So we've done a little bit of Jackbox. We did some of that Dice Tower Con 2017 at our game show. We've done it live a few times where people have joined us. But this being able to play things that are very similar to Balderdash and other games like that, drawing games, all sorts of games, you play them on your phone and then it shows up on the screen and then people can vote. And I have enough kids now with electronic devices, or I have devices that I can hand out at the house. Make this a really fun experience. I mean, this is like one of the most fun things we've done as a family. Just fantastic. And this is one of the ones that everybody can play or at least watch. Jackbox.
Yeah, I forget what platform, or maybe we were just chatting about You Don't Know Jack, which is where Jackbox comes from, and wondering if there was a current version of that. And I think just shortly after we had that discussion, the company announced that they were re-releasing You Don't Know Jack, I think in the very near future, before the end of the year or something, in a new Jackbox style pack.
That particular game with my kids.
Right. No, that one can get a little irreverent, but I also really enjoy that. That package was one of my college staples, playing that a lot. So, very fun.
Number 8.
Number 8 is Can't Stop, the classic Sid Saxon push your luck game. This one has been a very easy point of entry and also a very quick playtime for playing with my kids. If we only have a little bit of time, we can throw the dice around and try and get through a game real fast. We've played on the app a lot. It's one that my kids have played in the back of the car, and both live and in digital format. It's always been a hit, and they can teach it to other people very easily. It's just been it's been a staple of our collection. We have sort of a windowsill that has a bunch of the games that we tend to play very often, and Can't Stop has been there for years and is constantly getting pulled out. It's my number 8, Can't Stop.
All right, my number 8 is, and this one, by the way, this is one of those lists where I can't say anything about Eric's picks.
It's
right?
true.
But like, how dare you have fun with your family with that game? All right, my number 8 is World of Yoho. This is a game that I haven't talked about a lot recently, but it's a game in which you put your phone on the board. Your phone becomes a ship, and you move it around, and it shows the ship moving around in water. You can attack other people's ships, and you can go and you pick up a delivery and stuff. And if we get 4 phones and they're all charged, because they will run out of battery as this game goes by, which we can do, my kids and I have really enjoyed this one. It's been just a fun thing back and forth, moving the ships around. You can even attack people, go up next to their ship and shoot cannonballs, and you see cannonballs shooting from one phone to the other. It's such a cool idea. I can see why it didn't take off, because you have to have an internet connection, and all the phones need to be hooked up to that connection. And again, it runs the batteries out. But it's such a neat thing, and I still have it because we will play it in the future.
Cool. I never had a chance to try this one.
Number 7.
Number 7 is Mechs versus Minions, the Riot game with all the cool little figures. We play this on the easy level. One, because it just makes it a little more fun to progress through the levels if you're playing on easy mode, but also because we have this extra hurdle to get through, is that my youngest son doesn't necessarily play for the objectives, but plays to get the coolest weapons, and just really wants to collect a particular style of cards so he has the best gun. And he may be facing totally the wrong way, or, the corner, or us, but he has the best flamethrower, and that's the most important thing. So it's really my older son and me trying to solve the adventure, and then my younger son blowing things up. That's Mechs versus Minions, number 7.
My number 7 is Robot Turtles. This one just really hit home for me. This one was a game that teaches you simple programming. You play cards in a certain order, go forward, turn left, do this, go that. And one of my daughters is developmentally challenged. And the fact that this game was able to teach her a programming type thing just thrilled my heart. I still have a hard time talking about how exciting that was for me. Such a neat thing to see this game, which taught some very basic go-to and if-then type programming type aspects to younger kids. This was a Kickstarter, and I was so happy with the end result of it, and it was fun to play with the kids. Robot Turtles.
Yeah, we like this one too. I think it becomes really interesting once you get the function turtle. Once you add the functions in, where you've got the sort of recursive loops and stuff, that becomes really interesting. We sort of moved away from Robot Turtles and went into Robo Rally more recently, a slightly more complicated programming game. But still, Robot Turtles is very strong and still has a place on our shelf.
Number 6.
Number 6 is Stop Thief, a game my older son really likes the competitive mode on. He's sort of a shark if you let him play the red character, the one that gets the private tips for cheap. But the cooperative mode has really brought this to the table more often and brought the younger son in because we get to do this collaborative deductive game, and it's really been successful that way. My wife enjoys this one too. A lot of my gaming with the boys is without my wife these days, but this is one she'll jump in on. So Stop Thief is another success at our table, and my number 6.
Yeah, I just played this one with my kids just a few days ago.
Huh.
I came home from work and I was like, let's see if you guys can handle this game. And I was very impressed with them working together. And now there's that co-op mode in it, so that's awesome.
Yep.
So I'm happy with that. I think for a family, the co-op mode works a little bit better.
Sure.
My number 6 is Untold Adventures Await. This is a game that uses Rory Story Cubes. Now, Rory Story Cubes by itself is an interesting thing to play with families. It's just a bunch of dice you roll and you tell stories. That's great. And there's lots of different sets of this. But Untold Adventures Await takes these and plugs them in and teaches kids how to make a plot, to find the antagonist, to find the problems and the situations, and to deal with those. And my kids beg to play this game. And we have the most ridiculous characters. I think my character's butt is a computer. And now my hand can turn into a microwave.
Wow.
It can be handy if you want to heat up a sandwich.
Yes.
But it's just silliness like that, right? And they watch a lot of silly cartoons, and so they're probably cribbing plots from these different things. But I don't know. They don't want to play it without me, though, right? You guys can go play this by yourselves. They're like, no, we want to play it with you, Dad. We want to hear all these. Your character's in this story too,
right?
Yeah, I guess. Well, you can pretend my character died. What? Fine, let's play it again. And it just works so well. I said earlier this is one of the best years for kids games, and I really mean it, because Untold Adventures is one of those games.
Number 5.
My number 5 is Forbidden Desert. Probably, I like this one more than Forbidden Island, just a little bit, although Island would probably make my short list as well. Desert has that cool sand shifting mechanism, working together to build the airship, cool pieces, just a fun one. Both kids are understanding this one pretty well. They have their favorite characters to play. So this one hits the table on a pretty regular basis. Forbidden Desert, number 5.
Yeah, that's a great one. My next one is Stuffed Fables. Remember I talked about this year being a great game? Now, these are the only two I'm talking about that are specifically from this year, but there's so many good ones. I could have gone on forever. Yeah. Stuffed Fables is another one where we're going through the story. Now, we're not making up the story. This one's written by Jerry Hawthorne, who did Mice and Mystics, which Eric put for number 9. Mm-hmm. Which I could have put on this list, right? But I put Stuffed Fables because I think Stuffed Fables is that much better. It is... You're a bunch of stuffed animals defending a little girl from nightmarish dreams. The story goes in all different things. There's a huge book of stories. It's so thematic. It has its ups, its downs. It's about as dark as I would want a kid's game to get, and yet never crosses any kind of lines. Gets the kids excited, sad, through a wide range of emotions. It's so impressive. I would watch a cartoon made on this series.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Stuffed Fables, a fantastic game, and we've had a great time, me and the kids.
Number 4.
Number 4, I sort of spoiled in our questions segment, Unlock. My kids love helping out with this one, organizing the cards, looking at each card for hidden messages. I haven't played all of the Unlock adventures with them, but this is an excellent one. They always enjoy breaking into the new set, the new adventure, and trying to solve all the puzzles, put the items together, giving ideas. How can we use this screwdriver on this mirror? I'm like, well, I don't know what would happen if you did that, but we can try it. It's a really fun, cooperative, collaborative adventure. Yeah, any of the escape rooms tend to fit in this category, but Unlock is our favorite, and my number 4.
My number 4 is Ticket to Ride. Now, this initially started out as a game I played with my wife. We played this a lot together, as in a lot.
A lot.
And then Melody was able to play it, and then other kids were able to play it. So now it can be a family-style game. It's not the kind of game that when it's over, we all hug each other and say how much we love each other, because some games can get mean and vicious, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Super duper 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 fun. Ticket to Ride.
This is one that has not been terribly successful with my kids. They've played the full version, and they also didn't take to the first Journeys, the kids' version, either. That one we had for a little while and has actually left the collection. I don't know. I think it will just loop around and try and hit this one again in another year or so. But they have not been terribly successful with this one.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Hot Shots. This is the Fireside Games firefighting game. You're all forest fighters, forest firefighters. And it's a dice rolling push your luck. So, we can sort of cheer and moan when the dice don't work out the way we want, but there's that push your luck aspect where you get maybe a mild success, but if you keep rolling, you might be able to do more. So what is your goal here? Is it worth the risk to go for that extra roll and try and get that extra symbol that's going to help you out? This is another one where my youngest son sometimes takes more risks than he should. And may end up losing it for us. We've had some very epic games end that way. But it's one that's hit the table a lot more than I thought. I mean, I enjoyed the game when we first played it, but the kids really have taken to this one, and it's another one that they ask to play often. So a lot of table time for Hot Shots, my number 3.
That was one I wouldn't realize would be that high on your list, but that's cool.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Dixit. Now, granted, I could put a lot of party games on my list, period. But Dixit is the ultimate winner in our family, and I think Dixit is a really neat game because it scales per age so well. because the clues that are given by the people that age, right? So if a bunch of kids play Dixit and a bunch of adults play Dixit, they're going to play very differently, but they're playing the same game with the cards. And so this is easily the number one game that is requested, and this is actually my number one headache right now because I don't know where Dixit is.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I can't figure it out. I don't know if I took it to a convention and it got used at that convention. Oh, wait. No, I know where it is. I took it with me to the homeschool convention. I wonder what happened to it there.
Huh.
I thought I brought that stuff back. Maybe I did. Well, anyway, but it has like all the expansions in it, so that's why I'm trying to hunt it down.
Right, yeah.
But anyhow, a lot of fun the game is for sure, and I like how, like I said, like it works well for families, but it could also work well for a gaming group. But my family loves it. That's Dixit.
Yeah, this is another one I haven't tried with the kids and should do so.
Number 2.
My number 2 is one of our sync points on our list. Untold Adventures Await has been a huge hit for my kids as well. They are constantly asking to play it. My character fell in love with all of the fish in the sea. Like he tried to do something. He tried to do something and got you get the bad result. You're like, you try and take an action and here's what I'm trying to do. And then if things don't go well, you end up with some sort of bad result. And I fell in love, and the group decided that I fell in love with the fish. And so I was constantly, whatever the fish needed, I was going to do from then on. And they have played this without me. They recently told me that when they played recently that I was no longer, they saved me, they broke the spell, I am no longer in love with the fish. So I look forward to seeing what faces my character next in Untold Adventures Await, my number 2.
My number 2, I'm still thinking about how great that game is. My number 2 is Heroescape. Heroescape has just been a great time for me, mostly me and Melody, but some of the other kids have played it too. Just setting up this huge terrain, everyone working together, building these huge layouts, and then playing with, it's like playing toys. All these soldiers and dragons and pirates. Well, there's no pirates there should be pirates in Heroescape, but there's
really?
not. I don't think there's any pirates in it. No, there's Western and Vikings and dragons and robots and D&D stuff and superheroes.
Marvel. Yep.
It's fantastic. It's so much fun to play this. It's a big toy, and I think it's one of those games that when you're an adult, you'll be like, yeah, when I was a kid, I played Heroescape, and I remember it fondly. Heroescape, my number 2.
Heroescape, I have not played by the rules of Heroescape in some time, but my kids have broken out the collection and made their own castles and terrain piles and had their own adventures using the pieces, especially the Marvel characters. You know, get to move Iron Man and Captain America and Spider-Man around. But we have not played by the rules in a while. That's on the list as well.
And finally, number 1.
I'm going to finish things up with not a surprise in any way. Stuffed Fables makes my list as well. Yeah, this one has been more successful than Mice and Mystics. My youngest especially really latched on to the theme of the stuffies and protecting their little girl. And the older child as well. He was also very much into this. I like those. You mentioned the emotional roller coaster that this was. There were some moments of being a little scared, but also of coming together and overcoming those scary characters or whatever peril the characters were in and the situations. And I also appreciated that there's sort of a good and bad ending to every adventure, but those good and bad endings are not that different from each other. So even if you, quote-unquote, fail, if their little girl wakes up during the course of the adventure and you get the not-so-great ending, it's really just less of a... It's just not as stellar. Like, the little girl doesn't cope quite as well with her trip to the doctor or something like that. And it's not like, everything is terrible. And it's just... she could have handled that better, and she was a little more sad after visiting the doctor instead of being, like, all smiles. So I appreciated that. I appreciate the discussion questions at the end and the beginning. There's a fable and there's discussion questions at the end of every adventure. This was really designed to be a family storytelling experience, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from this. I have a hunch there will be more from Stuffed Fables, my number 1.
A hunch? I'd put money on it.
Yeah.
All right, my number 1 is, Eric's already mentioned a bit, is number 4, Unlock. I would just put all of them. Exit, escape, unlocks, whatever. As soon as the next one comes, boom. And half the family drops everything and comes and plays it. These games, these exit escape rooms in a box, have brought us together so much so. Everyone's involved, looking for clues, working together, solving puzzles. I love them. Right? And it's also kind of, for us, for me especially, as someone who's always looking for new experiences, I'm not the kind of dad who wants to play the same game 80 times with his kids. I'm just not. I don't like doing that. But the escape rooms give me that experience of doing something with them, but doing something different and new each time we do it.
Yeah.
I love it. Some of them have been harder. Some of them haven't been as good as others, but they've all been good, and some of them have been phenomenal.
It's true. And usually, in most cases, you have a nice finite playtime for them. That hasn't always been the case. Like sometimes I'll say, oh, well, we have an hour before bedtime. Let's do one of these unlocks. And sometimes they go longer than 90 minutes or 60 minutes. They'll go longer because it's like an extended. You gained more time to do like the finale of them.
Dad, I can't figure this puzzle out. Yes, you can. Go to bed.
Yeah, go to bed. Yes.
All right, let's see what the People's Choice said. Now, remember, these are just overall in general, and this is like the top 10 casual games right now. All right,
sure.
Number 10, Catan.
Sure.
Number 9, Takinoko. Number 8, Splendor. Number 7, Sushi Go.
Yes.
Number 6, Seven Wonders. Number 5, Pandemic. Number 4, Azul. Number 3, still staying up pretty high in the list, Carcassonne.
Wow.
Kind of surprised by that. Number 2, King of Tokyo. Number 1, Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
That's a really solid list of 10 games to play with your family.
Yep. I had my children's principal at their elementary school recently left, and one of the last conversations we had, she said, all right, you got to tell me what are the best family games to pick, what's new and hot in the family sphere. And Azul was the one that I came up with as a new one, a hot one. And I think I also recommended Reef, which I just don't think has had enough time to make it up this list, but I think Reef will be in there soon as well.
Yep, I think so. Well, we'll have to wait and see, but either way, it's pretty impressive. So thanks so very much, folks, for coming on board and listening. I'm pretty excited about this episode. It's fun for me to think about these great games. Gaming and families is one of the reasons I got into the hobby to begin with. So, we have forums. You can go check the forums at our website, dicetower.com, or on Board Game Geek, or our Facebook forums, too. If in any of these forums that we're at, why not go in there and tell us great games you like playing with your families? Let's spread the word. Maybe someone else will get some inspiration from it.
Mm-hmm.
Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell, though.
I'm Eric Summerer, though.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower, though.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 564, was recorded July 12th, 2018. Coming up in the next few weeks, Mandy and Suze check in with you with a duo episode, and we get the full quartet together for our Gencon preview. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has become more than you can handle, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, and Rob Searing. Scottish Seafood brought to you by Clams of Caledonia. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower network, including Board Games with Panda, The Broken Meeple, Start Space, The Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, Tabletop Game Talk, and Board Game Blitz. Find out more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. I like these lists where it's like personal and you can't argue with them, so we should do that more often. Next week, it's going to be our top 10 games that are on our second shelf down on our personal cabinet.
Don't think I can't like what? Gloomhaven's a heavy game. That definitely belongs to the bottom shelf. Are you a moron, Eric?
That should not be that high. That could tip the whole thing over.